Hello, Hockey World. I normally would now turn it over to Russ, who has the best pre-shows in the business, but I am going to instead today going to give you my pre-show thoughts because yesterday I came upon a sport
Which are
that's on
usually
ESPN too that I like. This is not the battling robots, the battling I don't even know how to describe it that I talked about before, where you had these puppets basically that battled each other. But this is now the official U.S. Invitational Air Hockey Championship. All right, so I was watching this last night and watching the Air Hockey Championship. And first of all, there are some big flaws in competitive air hockey that I want to point out. Um, there are fat guys who play this a lot of times, and they wear these ESPN T-shirts that say ESPN Air Hockey Tournament, and they have their numbers on the back and their names or whatever. But these T-shirts are not tucked in. Fat guys are tended not to do, and they lean forward, and the shirt would often block the goal. Like it would literally like come over the air hockey goal, and no one was saying anything about this at all as I'm watching this. And I saw a couple times where I thought, man, that looked like that might have hit his shirt. Until eventually there was a protest lodged by one of the thinner players. and,
Yeah, but you're shooting an air hockey at a pretty good, clip. I don't think a shirt's going to really hold
no,
it.
a T-shirt. Trust me, as a person who has an air hockey game, who plays competitive air hockey with my wife all the time, and my wife has won several. When we have house parties here, we have Kevin's buddy Steve has been involved in this. Fields of 16 air hockey things that we'll set up a board and we'll play like a full, like if there's 16 people here, all have to play in the air hockey tournament. My wife has won, I think 5 of 7 of them. She's very good. But I can tell you that, yeah, shirts can definitely block even the hardest of air hockey shots. And also the guy, how you hold an air hockey paddle is also very easy to mess up because, there's the people who hold it with like 2 fingers. You've seen that, like the cool thing. And then there's the air hockey paddles that are like fully like we have the classic vintage air hockey paddles that just have the one little dimple coming up out of the middle, and that's it. But then there's the ones that have like the bar that you can hold on to that looks like a little like half.
Yeah. I don't like the bar ones. Yeah.
No, I mean, and those you can actually sometimes if you're big enough and fat enough, you can get your wrists kind of onto the surface as well, and use that to block some of the shots. And I saw this guy also blocking shots with what I swore was his wrist on the air hockey surface itself. I mean, the thin guy actually, won, and he was apparently the greatest air hockey player in history.
I might be rooting for the fat guy in this case, though, Eck. Like there's not that many sports that favor the fat guy, and this is one of them.
Air hockey.
As a fat guy, I second that motion.
Can you call him the fat guy though? I'm not really sure you can.
I mean, the other guy was the fatter guy. Like I'm not gonna say he was obese. He wasn't 600 pounds, but he was like it wasn't my 600-pound air hockey player. It wasn't like that.
I don't know what the politically correct version of fat guy is, though.
The
rotund,
big boned guy. Big boned guy. I love the big bone thing. It's a big bone guy. My son has a disease that actually makes him have big bones. We joke around about it all the time. He's a big bone guy, But So competitive air hockey. If you want to be involved, I mean, I was watching the competition, and I'm telling you, my wife could have taken out some of these.
I'm pretty good at air hockey. That one I'd get involved in.
But I
would get involved in that.
I can tell you that in 1974, air hockey was big on the college campus at Eastern Michigan University. There was some pretty, big and wild air hockey tournaments that went on back then.
It's a great sport.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a cool game back then. So
yeah, I mean, I have, believe it or not, an air hockey game that came out of the Spectrum that was on the concourse of the Spectrum way back when. So it's orange and black, and it also has a behind the net thing, so it's got like the net is a little bit forward, which is not pure air hockey where you just have the slit at the end of the table, which is what in the air hockey
it should be.
And the air invitational was just a split at the end of the table, but mine has actual, around the net things, and also like corner things that are cornered in like this, not just squared, but cornered in. You get that angle shot. So there's a lot of different.
So there's your home air hockey advantage because most people have played on the other kind.
Yeah, that's true. But I still was rather impressed by the whole thing. I thought it was.
I think air hockey is still kind of cool.
It is cool. It's always been cool.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And it really, it is a kind of sport that anybody can beat anybody at. Like we've seen, like we've had the field of 16, and some often parents with their, some of them have been soccer, when my daughter's soccer team would be here. So they've been like parents and older parents, younger kids, and everybody pretty much pretty even keeled on this.
Yeah,
Like
you have to have pretty good reflexes to block the other shot. Like
anybody over 15 years old, I think, who can hit it at least a little bit hard can beat anybody else in air hockey.
Although it seems like if you have fat hands, you have an advantage.
You have an advantage if you can lean the hand on the table as you're doing it. Yeah, you definitely have an advantage. And also, but it's all about angles, as my wife, a scientist. So there you go.
It is. It's like pool. And my favorite part of the game is, like we all believe like we've got it blocked, and yet there's always the moment when you're sweeping across, when you see it bouncing off the side and the angles, you're sure you have it, and you totally whiff, and then it goes in your net, and you're just incredulous. Like, I had that, and it happens. I don't care how good you are, it's going to happen to you.
Absolutely true.
And that feeling that you get is just like, are you kidding me? I had that.
No, but I will tell you this: you can feel invincible if somebody's shooting it at you, and you could stop it by putting your whatever you call the shooter on top of it.
Yeah, like they
you stop it and you do it on top, and you don't keep the momentum going. That then you get the psychological edge.
Yeah, I mean, in our game, if you ever do that, it's you're thrown out. You're
what do you mean you're thrown out?
You cannot place your thing on top of the puck, move the puck, because that's lame air hockey. That's like grabbing the puck in the corner, pulling it out.
I'm never playing in your tournament. You guys are being.
The puck has to stay flat.
Let's embrace
John McEnroe.
Let's embrace that statement. Lame air hockey. Isn't that sort of like a oxymoron?
It's good, and we have another rule that if the puck goes off the surface. And the last person to touch it is at fault, no matter what happened. So the last person to touch it is at fault.
No, that's fair. I agree.
That the other player then gets what we call a penalty shot in air hockey, which is
why do you get a penalty shot?
How a penalty shot works in air hockey is this: the defending goalie
away from the table.
No, the defending goalie can place his defending thing wherever he wants. Okay, the other guy has to score off a wall. But he gets a free shot. Boom! So you can score off the wall.
This is a cockamamie rule in a cockamamie tournament.
It adds a lot.
That's like putting money on free parking in Monopoly. It's
a fun strategy. It adds a lot.
Not in the rule. You just sort of make it up.
Right.
There's got to be some repercussions for hitting.
No, there doesn't. Because if I hit it in your end and you make a sweeping save and it goes off the table, why should I get a penalty shot? You blocked my shot.
I have a guarantee. I have a guarantee of not. I have a guarantee of not losing an X tournament. I'm not playing.
No, I'm not playing either.
I'm not surprised that you wouldn't play, Mike. So.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I'm just not surprised. Because you know why? You know why you won't play?
I know.
Because it's really fun. It's really fun.
Although I would succeed with my fat gut and my fat hands. I would rule. But
as long as you're not wearing a big T-shirt that's hanging over. I mean, if your gut's hanging over, I mean, here's to you. I mean, that's a big thing. You're seriously fat.
That's a big gut.
That's hanging over. But if your T-shirt is hanging over, that's a different thing. All right, here we go. Let's start.
Before we start, I have a question, and I have at least one panel member that I know can help me answer this question. Maybe all of you. But I watch these ESPN, particularly the baseball shows, and there's one now in the middle of the afternoon, and the name escapes me at this second. But there are 2 women and 2 men, and they talk baseball, and they're young people, and the show's interesting. However, it's a style now, and I've seen this on other programs too, where everybody just kind of talks over one another. So here's my question. Am I just so old that I can't deal with that and I can't sort it out, or is it annoying for everyone?
No, it's annoying for me. I don't think you should ever talk over anybody if you can help it.
Yeah,
but why do we allow that now? I mean, you see it now so often that it's 4 people, they're talking baseball, but they're all shouting at each other.
That's the issue, Kev. It's bringing A. Smith theory. If you're shouting loudest, you're going to get hurt.
Well, no, it's that plus it's the Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaq effect. They are always debating and yelling over each other, and or even the Jerry Springer effect of everybody yelling and screaming at each other. They think that's what people want, so that's what they offer. I find it annoying. I like to actually hear conversations.
Yeah.
And so, maybe I'm too old as well, but whatever.
Yeah, I actually like what those people have to say, but I only hear about 22.7% of it.
Well, no, but that's an issue because I know I have friends and family that if they walk in and I'm watching a certain show and all they hear is just yelling, it turns them off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I won't listen to a podcast like that. Like if a podcast is like crazy like that, I won't listen to it. I won't listen to it. Oh, by the way, before I do want to mention this before we start.
Well, wait a second. I'm going to talk over you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I do want to mention this before we start that we're taking cases for the Judge Kevin Allen concept. So if you have something out there that you believe needs to be debated, or something that you'd like to see us debate, like we could pick a day where Mike and Russ debated. I'm the bailiff and Kevin's the judge, or we can alternate these things around, or something you'd like to debate, and have Judge Kevin Allen, who is the ultimate soothsayer and decider of all things in hockey. He will bring it down to he will break it down to the most simplistic and perfect level for you. So email those to Eklund@HockeyBuzz.com and put Judge Kevin Allen in the subject. We will go through it, and we might have you on the air. We might have you on the show. We might have, if we like it a lot, we might do a separate podcast with it. We'll see how it goes. But email me your debates. Like, how many times do we as sports writers hear from somebody else, hey, we'd love to settle a bet for you. Like, hey, I'd love you to settle a bet for me. Like I hear that all the time, right? Well, this is your chance to have Kevin Allen, Hockey Hall of Fame sports writer, settle your bet with your friend. So,
and I will make sure that I have an intro, musical intro for that. It'll be
that was a massive fail, Mike.
Well, no, because people were talking over it. That's why.
I was explaining the show.
Yeah, and the first one, just to remind all of our viewers, we had a Scalia going, voting for burning of the flag type situation where everyone assumed that Russ would prevail, and he didn't.
Right, he didn't. No, it was really surprising. And yeah, but that's because now when you debate these things,
I like that reference, Kev. That's great.
When you debate these things, it's going to be like Kevin's not going to give his he might also give his hockey opinion on it, but it's going to be mainly based on how well you make your argument.
For sure.
And then he can tell you who he thinks won the argument, and then maybe he might also add what he thinks his personal opinion is on the debate. But it's Kevin is one of the most level-headed people, just ask his children, that you'll ever meet. And so let's move on to the show. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, April 20th, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, and since it's 420 today, any business in Ontario, beware of any business selling brownies.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I don't know what that reference is, but I don't even want to ask. I'm Kevin Allen from Hockey Buzz.
I love that Kevin doesn't know what the 420 reference is. I'm Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And Mike, explain the 420. I know it has to do with marijuana, but what exactly?
Well, I assumed it did because he mentioned brownies, but
right.
I went to college in the 70s, so I know what.
Right. Is it you can buy 4 joints for $20? Was that the concept of it?
No, I think it's the legal. It's something with the legal code.
It is something to do with the legal.
Yeah, but it's legal to. I mean, there are so many marijuana shops and cannabis shops in Ontario, and that's why obviously they're gummies. They also sell them in food, and that's why I'm like saying beware of buying brownies because they could be laced with hashish. And there you go.
When I was, going back to the 70s when I was playing air hockey, also we were eating brownies, and now it's all about gummies. Now when people make references to gummies, I think marijuana.
Right.
Yeah. I know. And I made a mistake of eating something that I didn't know was that.
Sure.
No, I'm serious. I've never smoked products. I don't drink. I don't do anything. But I did do that, and I am telling you, it was the most horrible experience I've ever had in my life. The ground felt like it was up at my knees. At that level.
Gosh.
I got that kind of thing, like where the ground was at my knees and my legs were in the ground.
No, that's not a joke because a friend of mine was prescribed for migraine headaches. She was prescribed CBD gummies, and they're not like exact in terms of the dosage that each one gets.
Yeah.
And she took one and got violently ill because of it. So that's not a joke.
The dosages are really scary. I actually got it. Must have gotten it. It was too freaky. So my wife was with me as I told her the world was going to end. I should be rushed to a hospital, and she's like, "You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You just ate something." It was a fun night. Fun night was had by all. But let's move on to the hockey world, shall we? What I said would happen, and we are going to get into free agents. The Kevin's second half of the free agent list has been requested by many out there. We're going to get into that. But as I sort of said happened. the Vancouver Canucks are the most frustrating team in the world because they will win a game like they won against Dallas. And I said the next night they're going to play Ottawa and they're going to lose because this is what they've done. And sure enough, I mean, they did get an overtime point, but they did lose to Ottawa, and that is the tough thing about this hockey world. It's like, it is really hard sometimes to, like, the Dallas thing that was like the Super Bowl for the Vancouver Canucks. They were pointing to that for a week. It was all everything. And they came out and they romped.
Well, that's why this 3-point system stinks.
It sucks. It sucks.
Well, you're outlining why it stinks, and I'm agreeing.
Yeah.
But we talked about this for like 20 minutes yesterday about like what could happen, and then what happened? Ottawa beats Vancouver. Nashville, who you were saying were in deep trouble, they beat Calgary.
Super impressed by Nashville last night.
What's that?
Super impressed by Nashville last night. No question.
And then LA beats Anaheim 2-1. And I mean, they're 5 points up on Vegas and Vancouver. I mean, I'm sorry, even though and this is not.
No, it looks pretty good for them now. It does.
Yeah, it looks pretty good for them. And I'm sure Edmonton is popping the champagne bottles because they're going to play the Kings in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, there are still games left. Obviously, there's still like 12 points out there to be had, but it's like they are 5 points up, and there's no debating that. Like that win last night against Anaheim, I thought and they did get it was a 2-1 game. It wasn't like they came out.
No, that was a tight game. I fell asleep, but it was.
I watched a lot of it. It was a boring game. There was so much defense being played. It was a little bit like, because we've seen like the average is of 6 goals, 6.2 goals a game this year in the NHL, which hasn't been that way since like the 90s. Since the 1995, which everyone says and my friends always say is the year the New Jersey Devils destroyed the NHL. Ever since then, we have not had 6-point-some goals a game. But so last night, but bunch of low-scoring games last night. Playoffs, right? We talk about playoff hockey. 2-1 LA over Anaheim. 2-1 Ottawa over Vancouver. 3-2 the Predators over the Flames. Yeah, I guess the Predators. Like Kevin, you missed yesterday when I predicted what I thought would happen. I thought the Vancouver Canucks would get that third spot. The Kings would fall to the second wild card, and that Dallas would get the first wild card, and the Predators would fall out of it. But now, after that win last night, it's really hard to say that.
No, and the Kings have such an easy schedule, just by happenstance. Going down the stretch. So they're not going to lose that 5-point lead with 4 games left. There's no way. I mean, they're playing Anaheim again and Seattle and Chicago and teams that, even if they go 500 and win 2 of those,
right?
That'll loser points. Like if they get 2 loser points, they're set. I mean, that's basically when it comes down to, right? So I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, they're not, and they don't look like a playoff team. Even last night, they didn't look like a playoff team. They don't. I mean, it's funny. It's weird because we talked on the show on Monday about.
I will say this: Quick does look pretty good. This is as good as he's looked in the last 3 years, though.
Quick is the difference maker right now for them, and I'm again not super surprised. So last night, Minnesota, another low-scoring game, Montreal 2-0, right? And Talbot gets the shutout. Now people this morning are on XM are saying, "Oh, Talbot's got to be their goalie." No, I mean that's shutting out the Canadians.
Yeah, the Montreal Canadiens with their goal support of Carey Price. So they have not scored a goal for him in 3 games.
No, but that game is significant that Carey Price only gave up 2 goals. That was significant.
Yeah, because the Wild bring it. But the Wild had a lot of guys hurt too. The Wild were missing a lot
but they still bring it, and that's a big step forward for Carey Price. That's the way I looked at that game.
Yeah. And then last night also, Detroit and Tampa, Kevin, we were talking about this before the show.
Yeah. Tampa is not playing well. They haven't played well for a very long time. I got to believe John Cooper is worried about it.
That's why I picked the Leafs to beat him in the first round. If there's no,
I mean, they just don't have it together. And I mean, the leading theory obviously is boredom, that they need the playoffs. But then cue up the annual debate discussion about whether teams can turn it off and on.
Yeah, I think it's more than boredom. I'm with you on this, Ken.
Well, I mean, all I can say for people of like mind to myself are want Tampa Bay, Toronto to steer as far away from Tampa Bay as possible, because I just see it as a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Last night was a good result because, as Ack just said, Detroit beat Tampa in regulation. Boston beat St. Louis in overtime. Now Boston's only a point behind Tampa with 5 games. I think 5 games to go.
Good chance.
Toronto looks like they're safe in second place. 8 points ahead of Tampa, so that'll be real tough for Tampa to catch up to them. And if Boston finishes ahead of Tampa, which based on the way Tampa is playing right now is not an impossibility, it would be Leafs Boston. I think the Leafs have a much better chance of beating Boston than they do Tampa.
But you said it to me yesterday. You thought the Leafs had a better chance against the Habs last year.
Yes. And if John Tavares doesn't get hurt, and if they don't play with their head up their ass, they win that series.
Yeah. But, I
don't think you could say that.
The truth is between Mike's position and X position.
Right.
X position is that it just matters completely, how well the team has played during the regular season between the two, or even over the last 2 years. And, Mike thinks because they won the Cup 2 years in a row and they've been good for a long time, they're just going to be able to rise up and beat the Lightning. But, it'll be somewhere in the middle of all that. We don't really know what's going to happen because that's the way these playoffs kind of play out.
Kev, around this time of year, I always ask this question. I remember asking it last year, and you said that there was no appetite for it. But, okay, looking at what the standings would be, I know Pierre LeBrun wrote a piece about the 3-2-1, 3 points for regulation win. I'm not for that. I'm for going back to a conference playoff format. And if you go with that, where the top two teams, the division winners are 1-2, which would be Florida and Carolina right now. Carolina is tied with the Rangers, but I think because of regulation wins, they would have second spot. It would be Florida, Washington, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Toronto, Boston, and Rangers, Tampa.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that is more fair than what's going on right now.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think. Plus, I think conference format definitely for older people is favored for sure. We especially people who remember when there was an AFL and NFL, like that, conference. Plus, they went to the division format again because they looked at the way people bought tickets. If you remember all this, because there was criticism right after they went to it because there were too many games against division. But the reason they went to it is because they looked at how people bought tickets, and they always bought more tickets for division games. But how they buy tickets and what they want to see in the playoffs are two different animals.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
I totally agree.
And they were getting tired. Look, they weren't getting tired of some. Every once in a while, there was a patsy game in the first round where it was a guarantee that the other team was going to win, and you'd find one or two of those.
Yeah.
With this format, it can't happen that way. It's impossible.
It's kind of a good hybrid format, to be honest. I mean, it's like and it isn't perfect, obviously, but what I don't like, here's what I don't like about the new format: this concept of seeding. The fact that I think the second round should go to conference, should go to standings. Like the fact that whoever wins that 2-3 between Toronto, Boston, or Toronto, Tampa is going to play the winner of the Florida series. That I just don't like. I think that
you think they should reseed.
They should reseed after the opening round. I don't see any point in not.
The argument against that, and I do kind of understand this, although I tend to believe that I would prefer it your way. Yeah. The argument is that fans prefer to know who they're going to play.
Is this the bracket thing, the office bracket?
Yeah. They just prefer. Now, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, though. Because you don't want, and you see it all the time in international hockey, where someone gets to take advantage of an upset.
Yeah, right.
And that's what you don't want. You'd rather have it there should be a constant reward for finishing well in the regular season. That shouldn't stop after the first round.
And the Cinderella team should have to keep playing the best teams that are out there. Like the Cinderella team.
And with a conference format, they would reseed because the highest seed would play the lowest seed. So, but this is the thing, Kev. Is there any appetite in the league to change the format the way it is? Because honestly, I don't like, not, it's just personally, but I know a lot of people who don't like the current format. And I had somebody yesterday float me the possibility of, okay, you finish 1 through 4 in the division, and then 2 from the Atlantic plays 3 from the Metro, and they flip flop.
which is like international competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't see it. But we've long been a league resistant to change.
Yes.
We don't like it. That's why I don't see it happening. But we'll kind of see. I'll tell you, when change will come about is when people stop going to games, and people are not going to stop going to games. So
they're not going to stop going to playoff games.
Correct.
Sure.
Well, playoff games playoff hockey is just phenomenal. It's just
what I wonder is
the best 2 weeks in sports in my mind.
What I wonder is, Kev, is if and obviously I cover Toronto. If a power broker in the league like Toronto says, I think it's inherently unfair that we have 3 of the top 5 teams in one division, and by the end of the second round, 2 of those teams are out. There should be some way to have to make the regular season more meaningful by playing lower seeds in the first round or 2 of the playoffs, rather than going it being Tampa and Toronto, or Tampa or Toronto.
Yeah, there's no guarantees, Mike. Like, I get what you're saying, but there's no guarantee just because you're doing it that way, the results will be any different. Like, there is no guarantee of that.
Yeah. You did, but you raised a really interesting point, Mike. The one that I hadn't thought about in a while here. But in the old days, there were guys who had a lot of clout. Back to the days of Jimmy Jacobs in Boston, Bill Wirtz. There were guys that really could get things done. And Ed Snyder is another one. And that doesn't really exist anymore. Like, we don't have those guys. We have guys that
it doesn't, Kev, but the reason I mentioned Toronto is because Toronto is owned by 2 of the biggest rights holders in Sportsnet and TSN, the corporate entities for both. And if the perception out there is they keep getting screwed because they're playing, because of the divisional format, I mean, those rights holders, I mean, they are stakeholders in that team. They, would make it known to the powers that be in the league that this is inherently unfair.
Yeah, but I don't know that they would carry the clout. I really don't.
Okay.
Kevin's right that even though these are big name teams, though there were certain people
that used to matter,
less people had the league's ear all the time, and that they could make a call and things would change. Like, I'm telling you, to this day, I am 100% convinced that trapezoid behind the net is there because Ed Snyder told the NHL
I think you're right about that.
For me to go along with this lockout thing, because I don't need to. The Flyers don't need to strike or lockout. Don't mean to miss a year. I want to get that away from get Marty Berdore's bring him down to life, and so Marty Brodeur can't handle the puck everywhere in his own zone. And
here's where I give the Leafs credit, though. It seems like this management group that they've had do not want to be those guys that are pictured or portrayed as whiners. So they really go out of their way to do the opposite of that. And I give them credit for that because they are in Toronto. They could be doing a lot of that, and I don't think they do.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. But I think that these days with social media and everything, it's much harder to be a jerk. It really comes off quick, and it takes.
Not really. I've managed to be one.
Well, with certain notable exceptions, of course. But there are definitely it's definitely difficult. Like what Kevin's saying about the single guy having a sit down lunch with Gary Bettman and making a difference. That's totally different than like a team going around and saying on social media they need to fix this, and I think it used to get done behind closed doors, and it's hard to be secretive in this world right now. I think
you don't even have powerful general managers anymore. You know what I mean? Like the way you used to.
Lamoriello, right? Like Lou Lamoriello is probably the closest thing you have to anybody from that.
But even him, like in the old days, like just think about like Ken Holland in the 3-on-3 overtime. Could he get that done today? I mean, he has had a large cadre of friends among general managers who he could call upon, and they know that if they support him, then up the road he'll support them, and I'm not sure that exists anymore. I think it's become less about personalities now, especially now with 32 teams. It gets much harder to wrangle the cats. when there's more cats.
Right.
So
And
I'm with Kevin too.
Back in the old days too. Okay, sorry, Russ. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Lou lost a lot of his power with the Kovalchuk penalty. I think that was the start of him losing a lot of that.
That could be. I mean, there was definitely a time when the NHL needed the big markets to agree with some things the big markets didn't want anything to do with, like the revenue sharing, like things like. And I remember I was in Ed Snyder's office at one point, I was there doing the Flyer Buzz TV when the call came about the check he had to write to the Nashville Predators for revenue sharing or whatever it was. And I heard the screaming about this, like, there's no question that these guys did not want to do that. These self-made guys who were single, did not want to, do that kind of thing. And the NHL, in order to get them to agree to do that kind of thing, and they needed them to do that, had to do a lot for them. They had to help them
but
out.
then they cooked up the whole Shea Weber thing and lost on that too. That definitely was a part of that.
No question. But I mean, this was just the whole, for revenue sharing to happen and all. I remember people complaining about the Buffalo Sabres getting revenue money because they had a waiting list for their season tickets, yet their ticket prices were so low that they weren't getting enough revenue. So the other teams were complaining about that. I remember that happening.
What about the Canadian assistance program, or because of the Canadian dollar? And now the Canadian teams are the most profitable teams in the league.
And the Canadian dollar is worse now, probably.
Honestly, that's how it really should be, Mike, because that is where the percentage of hockey fans live.
Yeah. So it's a tough one. It's a very, very tough one. All right,
the Flyers so miscalculated.
Oh yeah, with
Shea Weber thing though. I mean, it was painfully obvious right after it happened. And I remember the discussion, like it was yesterday, with a couple of general managers who pointed out, that the Flyers thought that the Predators couldn't afford it, and the both general managers who didn't, weren't together said exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter what owner you are in the league, you'd have to borrow that money in order to pay it. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I remember a general manager telling me this, they don't have a safe where they pull $25 million out and pull it out. He said, you have to make a short-term loan. And he goes, I don't care if you're the Maple Leafs or the Nashville Predators or whoever, that's how you're going to have to do it.
I think Eck gave us the insight as to why that happened. They got mad. They obviously had built up this grudge against them. They saw a weakness, what they thought was a weakness for someone in the cap office, saw the weakness and showed it to the GM, and they were like, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to exploit it. And they were wrong.
But it wasn't a weakness, I mean.
No, I know, but I think they looked at it.
It went beyond that. The Flyers I heard the story a while ago. I had a really well-placed source at the time about that, and I sat down with him for a lunch, and he told me the whole story of Shea Weber. And it was fascinating. It was according to him, the Flyers were trying to trade for Shea Weber for a while. They've been going back and forth with Coyle, trying to make a deal because they didn't want to do this nuclear option. They wanted to try to trade for him. Then Coyle was getting a little frustrated. Coyle went and went to the Rangers and said to the Rangers, would you like Shea Weber? And then went to Ed Snyder and said, not the Ed Snyder, but the Flyers, quote unquote, so it would get to Ed Snyder, that the Rangers were also talking about Shea Weber. And the second that happened, that the Flyers heard the Rangers were talking about Shea Weber, that's when the Flyers put the offer in, because the Flyers did not want to go to the Rangers. And if he was going to go anywhere, he was going to come to us, or he was going to stay in Nashville, but he wasn't going to go to the Rangers. And that was their thinking at that point. And that's why that deal went down. So I kind of think that Coyle, according to this, of course, is all according to one source. So take it, but he's really, really well placed. He had no reason to lie. According to him, if Coyle doesn't come back and say the Rangers, the Flyers probably don't make that offer like that. They probably just give up on it. But the second the Flyers felt like he could go someplace else, especially to the hated Rangers, that was the issue. And then they had to do it in their minds, which is not, that was the way Ed Snyder played. That was Ed Snyder's game. That was how he did things. He kept people away from the Rangers, keep people away from the Islanders, keep people away from the Devils.
Well, yeah, in an uncapped world, that's exactly how they all operated.
Right.
But
that's
that
how they
was no longer the uncapped world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right.
But I do believe the Rangers played the big part in that. And the Flyers were like, okay, well, they might match, but he's not going to go to the Rangers. All right, let's move to the next thing here. And I want to get into some free agents. Now, Kevin, in your 11 to 20 list, that was posted on HockeyBuzz a while back, at number 16, you had Marc-Andre Fleury. Today, Marc-Andre Fleury comes out and says he does want to play another year. Marc-Andre Fleury is going to play next year. He says that. So that I'm assuming that moves him up your list a little bit, right, Kev?
For sure. Yeah. We don't really know, but I've assumed all along. I've said I felt like he was going to play again because he likes to play, and I think if he was smart, he would just open it up to whomever, depending on what Minnesota does. If Minnesota wins the cup, that's a different story. But if they get knocked out, it'll just be crazy. Like, why wouldn't you give Marc-Andre Fleury $9 million for 1 year?
1 year.
Yeah, just 1 year deal. You can pay guys a lot of money for only 1 year because you can figure out how to make it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's assuming, it's all about the money in terms of a 1 year deal. Whereas, I've heard around the grapevine about like him maybe going back to Pittsburgh, and if he goes back to Pittsburgh, then it's clearly he wants to cap his career playing where he started. And, he's still got lots of friends on that team, but who knows if that's.
I don't think Pittsburgh would do that now. I think it would really screw things up with Jerry.
Yeah, I agree with Russ on that. I don't think that is a good option because, and plus he's going to want to go where he's going to be the guy. Why do it? So.
Right.
I know one team
that have problems in the playoffs. Like teams that have problems in the playoffs with goaltending are going to be the teams you're going to look to, right? Like if that's Edmonton, if that's Toronto, if that's if that's Carolina.
He could price Toronto out though. That's the problem with Toronto.
Yeah.
He could.
There's a certain level they could go to that's what I'm saying. If money, but same thing with Edmonton, Russ. Edmonton doesn't have oodles of cash.
No, they don't unless they can get rid of Koskinen somehow.
Right, and if the Leafs get rid of Mrazek, then they could pay $8 million for him.
Yeah, but I think, but again, he's got multiple years. I think Koskinen's got 1 year.
I don't think it's gonna be a problem to get rid of Mrazek. Right. We'll talk about that some other day. But
Colorado, is a possibility. All the teams we're talking about with Carey Price.
It's all the same teams. Yeah.
It's all the same teams. They're different, but they're very different kinds of situations. Obviously, Price is 3 years at $10 million. This is 1 year. Like Kevin said, anybody can do 1 year. Most people can do 1 year. Not everybody, but almost most people can do 1 year. And if you really
I think Vegas, even though it didn't work out for him, has proved you can do anything for 1 year.
It's
I could see him I could very much see him going back to Vegas. Honestly, like I think that would be.
I can't. No way.
I think he just liked that there's so much. He was he owned the town. He was beloved there,
and they undercut him. By the way, it's 4 more years for Carey Price.
4 more years. They undercut him,
so it fits in Edmonton. It does.
Yeah, Edmonton's a good fit, but does he want to go to Edmonton? It's a tough one. I don't know how much the money matters to him versus the opportunity. It feels like the opportunity is bigger for him than money, perhaps.
Yeah, that might be fair. I don't know. We can't get inside Fleury's head, but
but he's not going to take like $2 million.
No,
he's going to want a decent salary.
He's got one, but will he? But I guess the X point is, correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe it's 6 and not 9.
Right, maybe it's 6 for Vegas or something like that, or or it's 6 for Colorado, where a situation is just so solid. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on what. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just the one thing about Vegas too is that we tend to forget, like it feels because they got rid of Gallant that they really have a completely different team, and they've added stars to be sure, but there's still a lot of guys there that Fleury was tight with. So,
and his family loves it there. That's the other thing, and I think that matters so much to him. He definitely is one of those guys who likes to be around his kids, who doesn't want to be playing out of a suitcase. It's like what's happening now. I don't see him as I'm going to go. He's not a guy who has to go somewhere to win a Stanley Cup. He's done that. It's like there's certain things that you take off the table with him that you look for with other free agents like him. And so that's why he definitely moves up this list, I'm sure. So that's why I started with him even though he's at 16. But let's go to number 11, and that is John Klingberg.
Yeah. I see Klingberg as one of those guys. There are a lot of teams that really like him and see him as the answer, but I also have the teams that think, he's a good offensive player, but he's not really what we're looking for. So they want more. They want a two-way guy. They'd rather have a guy who maybe does less offensively than Klingberg, but he's better defensively. So
Right.
And I agree with everything Kevin said, but there are teams that are so desperate for offense.
Right. I agree.
That they might pay, because remember, the whole thing with Dallas decompensated when Klingberg said he wanted to be paid close to what Heiskanen is being paid, which is over $8 million.
Yeah.
No, and nobody, Dallas is not going to pay him that much, but Seattle might, or
Seattle
LA,
definitely would.
LA might, or the teams that need help on defense that have cap space, those teams might do that. So I don't think there's a chance he's back in Dallas.
No. Well, I for sure think he'll get that amount of money. I mean, I think Lindholm's a better player though, and he took less to go to Boston.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think he's a better two-way defenseman. Definitely.
Yeah.
Right. Number 12 is an interesting one. You have Evander Kane.
Yeah.
Has Kane reached the point where people are just like?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's. It's only going to take 2 or 3 teams to, to get him in, and he'll be one of the more interesting guys. Like he can, if he was totally reformed, and by that I mean, you had no concern about his off the ice activity, he would be much higher on that list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But if you're trying to win, boy, he can do a lot for you.
But Kev, it's funny that we bring this up, because I think it was Pierre LeBrun reported yesterday that one day was not going to be enough in terms of determining a direction for this termination of his contract in San Jose. And I was talking with a well-known hockey writer yesterday in Toronto about this, and the only thing he could come up with was maybe this is going to end up being like the LA Mike Richards settlement, where the cap gets spread over, like double the amount or triple the amount of years, and it doesn't affect San Jose, because San Jose spent the money on Hurdle. So if they all of a sudden are, they're on the hook for $21 million over the next 3 years, they're screwed. So I don't know how the NHL can do that.
Yeah, unless they can figure out a way to allow a trade of him as well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I think that's a fair question, and you may be absolutely right, Mike, because they've got to figure something. He can't go back there and play. No, like nobody wants that. I'm sure Evander Kane does not want that.
Yeah, but right. But your point is valid. If Evander Kane was in a vacuum and you just had the talented Evander Kane on the ice, 10 or 12 teams would say, I sign up. But the off the ice crap that has happened in Atlanta and in Winnipeg and in Buffalo and in San Jose, it's endemic in him. It's never going to change. So
you can't say that. I mean, we believe that, and it's it seems likely because of his history. But people reform all the time, and people didn't expect it. So
I mean, really
I'm a cynic. So
the next guy, are you, Mike? The next guy as on here is number 13, a guy I've never given enough credit until now, but I'm going to officially say that I was wrong. But this guy's a much better defenseman player than I ever thought. Is Nick Leddy, who is now with the he's with the St. Louis Blues and is being a big difference maker.
He's doing really well there. He is.
And,
he can skate. And he can move the puck.
I went by what I saw in the playoffs last year. I was wrong about that.
I think if Leddy was an Islander, the Islanders make the playoffs this year. I honestly think
that's where they may end up again.
So is that breaking on Kev? Do you think so?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. Not only is he a fit there with his ability, but he was well liked. So and I think chemistry plays such a big role in hockey. I think they'll consider that as well, and I think that would be an easy transition for his family
for sure.
To go back there. So I think it's a possibility, but we'll see. I mean, someone brought up before about players being angry about how they were treated. I don't know how Nick Leddy feels about what happened to him in New Jersey, but that can't be a great experience. It didn't even work out in Detroit the way that everyone kind of hoped it would. Like, he was originally come in, he was going to be a mentor for Sider, and it turned out that Stahl ended up being more of a mentor, and they didn't. Letty didn't play all that well with Sider, and what nobody factored in, and this has hurt Hronek as well, is that Sider instantly became the best defenseman on the team as a rookie. So Hronek, who was the number one defenseman, suddenly has to adjust to a new role. Letty is now caddying for Sider. I mean, it was an odd situation, and he didn't perform as well in that role, and he didn't get power play time. That was all Sider. I mean, Sider can do it all. He'll hurt you, he'll hit you, he'll get assists, he'll carry the puck. So it was a very complicated role for him. I think the Red Wings appreciated the effort that Letty made, but it just didn't really work out for anybody. Minus 33, that was the worst on the team. It wasn't even so
minus. That's a serious minus. Letty's going to be a fun one. I mean, I think that you would like to think that usually Lou Lamoriello is pretty good at not burning bridges with players. So maybe he said to Nick, "This is salary cap issue," and maybe it didn't end as who knows. But I would imagine that he definitely. At 14, another guy I never give credit to, who is Trocheck, Carolina Hurricanes. So Trocheck is, he's a center, as you put on here, Kevin. There aren't that many centers in UFA centers.
No, and there's a hot rumor in Detroit because he's got obviously connections here. Is that's going to be Yzerman's guy? The only doubt I cast upon that is they need size at that role. I mean, one of the things that happened with Pius Suter was it was pretty clear pretty quickly that he's kind of overmatched. You look at the number 2 centers in this league, and there's some big boys. In the center. Like Suter's a nice player, but he's he's a two-way guy. He can play some defense, but he's overmatched physically. And he's not a premium scorer. And I think they need to do better than that. And so I don't know. I mean, Trocheck's feisty, so maybe that. You give up a couple of inches and 15 pounds for some feistiness. So, I mean, I guess it's possible. But a person that I really trust said he believes that, that's for real, that they'll go after him. But, I mean, we'll see how that goes. Don't you think JT Miller, Russ, is a better fit in that role?
Yeah, I do. I think you're right. Yeah.
So, but, you got to give something up. That's the problem.
You do.
Yeah, so I like right now in Andrew Kopp, who was another center.
Right now, the top 3 free agent centers are likely, in no particular order, Kadri, Trocheck, and Kopp.
Right.
Those are probably.
I would argue that. I think Ryan Strome is ahead of Trocheck now.
Okay. What about now? I don't consider Giroux a center. I consider him a winger.
No, he's not going to play center.
So but he's
one of his playing second line. He's playing top power play. Yeah. So I would put him ahead of Trocheck at this point.
Although I think Trocheck's better two-way. I think he's a better defender.
Well, I mean, I think you're probably right on that. But I just think when you look at the points and the effectiveness that Strome's done the last 3 years, it's more than we all thought based on what he used to do with the Islanders. So I think he made it count.
Yeah, but I do think people will factor in who he plays with. And Trocheck is really good on faceoffs too. So I think that.
I think Giroux is kind of a center, even though he's not going to play center. I mean, he does take faceoffs for you. He does kill penalties. He does play on the power play. All the things you just mentioned. He's still going to take faceoffs even if he's not playing center. So he's kind of he's a quasi center. Like if you're getting him. I mean, he definitely can play center. He's better at the wing. He does seem to be fitting in really well in Florida. So, and I know Florida is.
There is another guy, and he wants to stay where he's at, and he's already. I would say even stronger than hinted that he will take less money, but who knows? And that is Evgeny Malkin.
Right.
Yzerman is persuasive.
Yeah.
And would he consider just saying to, Malkin, we'll give you, your regular fee to come and wear original 6 uniform and help me mold this team,
I think Malkin's going to side where his family is, though. I don't think this one's about money.
Yeah, I think he's going back to Pittsburgh too. But
Yeah,
I just
Maybe
threw
Sergei
that out.
Fedorov makes a call. I mean,
Well, Heisman and Fedorov were not friends when
They
they
were not friends,
played.
okay.
Oh no, they were not friends when they played together. So,
there you go. I didn't know that.
yeah,
I really like Andrew Kopp a lot, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the Rangers do too, Eck, and they're going to offer him to stay there. Probably
a Michigan boy too.
Yeah.
And
would they out the Rangers though, Kev? Would they do that?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I don't know that it can come down to money. It'll come down to opportunity and cups, and the Red Wings are a long way away from being.
They'll offer him second line center, and they'll have a chance at the cup. Like that's what they'll.
Yeah, the Red Wings cannot offer him that. They can offer him the number 2 center, and a chance to. His family. It was a really big deal when he came in here just the last game, and his family was all there. They have not seen him play live all that much.
Okay.
So it was a big deal. So if that's important to him, then I guess that's a possibility. But Cobb's certainly one of the guys.
Super intelligent player too, like one of these guys.
He's smart.
That could definitely be a coach someday, and just has like all that stuff that you see in him. So I think he would be a fantastic fit on any team. But you can see him, taking a shot with the Rangers and, ending up in Detroit in a few years down the line. I could really see that happening when Detroit gets closer. Ricky Raquel is next, the Pittsburgh Penguin right now. It's still hard to think of him as a Pittsburgh Penguin for me, but, he is next up. And
he's helped himself by playing well in Pittsburgh. So he's an offensive guy. Everybody's looking for offense. He'll have his and he's kind of the plan B. That's one of the top plan B guys. We don't get one.
He's versatile. He can play wing. He can play center. He's pretty decent defensively. So, and the thing is, he's going to look to make money in free agency more than other people because the deal that he took with Anaheim, he was making less than $4 million a year. This is I think he's 27 or 28 years old. This is really his last best opportunity to hit it big in terms of money. So I think he's going to go where the best contract is. I'm not sure I don't think he's going to go back to Anaheim because they're in a full rebuild. I think he's going to go whoever is the suitor that offers him the most for the longest term. That's where he's going to end up going.
I actually have heard Buffalo connected with him.
That would make sense. I mean, but this is the thing with Buffalo, and obviously I'm positive on what they've done this year, and players like Tuck and players like Tage Thompson and Skinner bouncing back. Nothing is going to happen unless they find out what's going on with a goaltender. Yeah. If they go into next season with Craig Anderson as the backup to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Luukkonen doesn't come through, then they're going to end up in the bottom half of the Atlantic Division again. I have a feeling, Russ, if they think that they're close to being a playoff contender, that they get in on Gibson or they get in on Ville Husso or somebody like that.
Well, I don't think Gibson's out there. I'll just say that.
Well, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. I keep hearing Gibson's name.
I'm not buying it.
I think, here's what I thought happened with that rumor that came out.
Smarter than that.
I hope so.
It came from a good source. Obviously, Pignotta wrote that rumor at the deadline. He's good usually, especially with California teams. But I really felt like maybe that from a perspective of, if I got a rumor like that, put it out there, that was kind of out of nowhere, I would kind of feel like it was probably like someone from Anaheim leaking it to me to sort of see what the interest was. But I don't think that anything was going to happen. Like I don't think he's going to go anywhere. There were a lot of goalies who were wondering what the goalie market was going to be like. Goalie market is never as good as it should be in my mind. It wasn't again this time, right? So
it's supply and demand. The problem with the goalie market is, and there are only 32 teams. There's 32 positions, and 25 teams are usually pretty happy with their goaltending.
Yeah.
I mean, with their number one. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, you're right. They usually are, but or they're completely not, right? So it's
well, I mean, but that still only leaves 7, and then those teams might have a guy coming up that they don't know about, and a lot like the Ricard thing, like a lot will depend on what happens. Like if Nashville loses Forsberg, would they be on Raquel? Maybe.
Or why not, right? That would be. He's a scorer. You got to replace those goals. And number 18 is a goaltender on your list, Darcy Kemper. His value, as you put, will depend on how well the Avalanche perform in the playoffs, and I do believe 100%.
Yeah,
That's
no, for sure. For sure. If he has, you don't want to get, everybody has watched the Grubauer situation, and nobody wants to get in that situation where, he has a great regular season, and then, Seattle gives him a big contract, and that really hasn't worked out well for Seattle. So
yeah, that's very, very true.
But okay, I'll just say this because, I know that we've criticized Ron Francis's approach to the expansion draft, and I think he did really good at the deadline. The signing of Grubauer does just at the very moment that he did it made absolutely no sense because, what is he? I think he's 28 or 29. By the time they're ready to contend for a playoff spot, he's 33 or 34 years old. I don't think.
Yeah, here's what I think happened, Mike. I think they had an offer out to him that wasn't answered on, and then they got Vanacek, and then it's like I don't think they were expecting Vanacek to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what caused the problem. I think they expected just to sign Grubauer, Vanacek wouldn't be there, and nobody would be talking about this.
And there was a lot of confusion, remember, with Carey Price being available all the time.
I think that all played into it. I can't kill Francis on that one.
I do think that when Colorado isn't willing to give Grubauer what he wants, you have to look at that like something. You have to view that as something. If you're Seattle, you have to say, okay, Colorado needs a goalie more than anything to win a Stanley Cup. Is not willing to bring back Grubauer for a price. That to me,
Minnesota wasn't willing to bring back Kentler. Like sometimes it comes down. A lot of times it comes down to the goalie coach more than the organization.
It's just comes down to faith.
Yeah, well, that's what you always do with pro scouts too. You entrust your future to a guy making $112,000 a year,
right?
Who only sees 2 periods of of every game. I should say that because there are a lot of great pro scouts.
Sure,
but
it's only because of the travel schedule, Kev. Like they literally have to go from place to place to place to place. That's really why they do it. So they can get
or they want to get in an extra 25 minutes at the bar.
That too. I mean, all right, you want to say that. Yeah.
Now, just I'm sure you got a couple more names, but just there's a report out there that the draft lottery, Russ, is going to be held on May the 10th, which is a week into the first round of the.
I don't know why it's a week into it. Usually, it's the first game or the game or just before the playoffs start.
It's right before the playoffs start, which I like.
This is odd timing.
It's not going to be held like in Toronto like it normally was at I think it was the CBC building that it was held before. It's going to be held remotely, and it's like again, this is I mean, we've heard there's going to be an NHL awards that's going to be fully, a full thing. Yeah. Everybody's going to the NHL draft in Montreal. I mean, do they just feel that the lottery is sort of like boilerplate?
They just don't want to spend much money on it. That's really what it tells me.
Reason it really is kind of an event that was designed to be remote. I mean, even in the best of times, it really
but it's just here's what I think, Ek. By making this remote and nothing else remote, it does devalue it a bit. I think unless
I don't know.
I do. Hold on.
I think it's already remote. I mean, who's not remote in this? I don't understand.
Well, although the GMs would be in a studio,
I mean,
and there would be some media there. They've been invited to the draft lottery before.
I mean, honestly, the view of Brian Burke almost boiling over at the 2016 draft lottery was worth its weight in gold. Come on.
But here's the other thing. I think it did pick up in popularity with fans. I do. I actually know a lot of people. I've been getting a lot of questions about that this week. Like, when is the draft lottery for fans of teams that are out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, you're right. It has gotten more popular, but I don't know that having that flying all these curmudgeonly GMs who are on teams that were losing.
Well, it helps for the coverage.
Is the right idea? Like, is that going to do?
Well, it helps for the. You know what it helps with that? If all those guys are there, it's like Mike said. You've got all these egos in the room, and you get to see them on display. If they're remote, it's a lot easier to hide all that.
I don't know. This
They
seemed
can
like
just switch off the screen when it's
me.
over.
I don't know.
Okay.
Kevin, to me, this felt like an easy thing for the GMs who said they don't want to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I disagree. I think Russ's points are valid, but I don't think this is a very big deal. I don't think the league has ever considered it, a major thing. And I think this was a way to, Toronto is still dealing with COVID. We now have baseball teams that are losing 7 or 8 guys. So why do it? You can still do it remotely and still.
Yeah.
Oh, you can do it remotely. There's no question. It's not like you can't. I just don't think you get the same coverage from reporters.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can argue that. It's always better when it's live. It's just I'm not sure that it's big enough to to worry about it. So
I do think it was nice before the playoffs start. Like to put it in the middle of the playoffs, I don't like.
Right. I think before the playoffs start was also a better placement of it.
Yeah. Just give those teams who don't make the playoffs, you gave them something to look forward to that week. Okay, I'm gonna watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a nice thing to do. Yeah, and then it's not distracted by what's happening in the playoff games. So anyway,
if you want to do it dramatically, you should do it over 30 weeks and have one team announce the week. Yeah. Anyway, all right, here we go. So let's really quickly.
Kevin, something.
Well, I did too. I just wanted to plant two seeds before we go because I think it's really fascinating. I don't think it's getting enough attention. We all kind of dumped on Washington. I did too because they weren't playing very well.
I didn't. I stayed steadfast. I'm staying out of this.
Well, of course you did. Yeah.
The video proves it. I don't have to say a word.
Yeah. But anyway, they're playing very, very well now, and it's just interesting how quickly it changes. Because they were playing so poorly before. But here's the other thing, and in Calgary, there's a lot of attention being paid to Johnny Gaudreau in the Hart Trophy, but I don't think it really has captivated the national audience the way probably it should. It's phenomenal what he's doing. Every day, I agree with you on that. Every day I look at his plus minus, which is to me just a barometer. It doesn't really mean anything because he's playing on a good team and he's scoring a lot, so it's going to go up. But he's at plus 60 now. Yeah, so I just see that plus 60 as an indicator of how well he's playing. And the award is importance to the team. It's written right in there. And boy, as much as I can make the same case for Austin Matthews, I can make it for Shesterkin. Boy, Johnny Gaudreau, like that, where's Calgary without Johnny?
Well, let me ask you, right? So let me ask you this: the seed on that one, Kev, is where's Calgary going to be when they trade the rights to Johnny Gaudreau at the draft because they can't sign him?
Well, I don't know what that has to do with him being MVP, but
no, but I mean just further down the
road. I've been saying it all along. The fact that they don't have him signed is absurd.
It's ridiculous.
I heard because I'm assuming right now that Matthews is the odds-on favorite to win the Hart, and he's got 58 goals. He's leading the league with 58 goals, but he didn't play the last 2 games, and the Leafs won the last 2 games. So how valuable is, well, okay, they won 3-2 and 5-2 over 2 of the worst teams in the league, in the Islanders and the Flyers. So it's what would they have won if Matthews had played? So I don't know if him not playing in a couple games is determinative of how valuable he is to the team. I think he's he's leading the league in goals. He's got 58 goals in 70 games.
I agree, but I wouldn't hand the award to him just yet. Because the Toronto media thinks that.
I think this is one of those years where every year it's true that there's no right answer, but this year, I think you can make a legitimate argument for all 3 of those players, and
sure.
I don't think you could say, unless you're Russ, guys.
Look at the Washington thing. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. But just because somebody else picked someone else, I don't think you could say they're wrong on this.
I think Shesterkin.
No, I wouldn't say they were wrong if Matthews won. I agree.
I think Shesterkin is going to end up getting screwed.
I do too.
I think it's going to end up being Gaudreau, Matthews, and Huberdeau.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, though, this plus 60, okay, it's been 40 years since someone has been in that area of plus.
Charlie
60.
Huddy.
And you're the best plus minus of all time, for a single season, Bobby Orr plus 124.
Yeah.
And there are, believe it or not, when I looked at this up, there are 55 players in NHL history. Well, some of them the same players over and over, but 55 times someone's been over plus 60 in an NHL season. 55 times.
But almost all of them were in different eras.
Oh yeah, none since the at the earliest the 80s. I mean, the latest the 80s.
No, I mean it's phenomenal. And again, I don't want to get too carried away because plus minus is not all that meaningful, but it is an indicator, and and just sort of just says how. What an incredible season he's had.
And I'm not disputing it, but every time I hear plus minus as something as a determining factor, I think of Charlie Huddy, who was
but I just said that, Mike. I don't. I'm not saying it that he should get these plus 60. I'm just saying that little number.
It is impressive. It definitely is.
Here's
it just showed you. So
fun along those lines, Kevin. Of the top 50 players ever. The top 50 plus minus players, 47 of them are Canadian.
Because those top ones came at a time when the Canadians had 90%.
Of course, in the 80s, there's only 2 Americans who've ever been over plus 60.
Mark Howe was one of them.
Mark Howe's one of them at plus 84.
Modano?
That's the 7th all time.
Modano?
Not Modano.
No, it would have been.
Well, it's not Brett Hull.
It was a Capital, Washington Capital.
Rod Langway?
Rod Langway.
Langway, yeah.
Yeah.
Plus 66 and 81, 82.
Yeah. That was the year he won the Norris.
But yeah, and Gretzky was on this is in this 3 times. With Gretzky's top was plus 100 in 84, 85. But then he plus 78 and then Gretzky had a plus 71. Actually, I'm wrong. He was on this 4 times. So
Gretzky only had 208 points that year.
69. But so only Gretzky, all of Gretzky's careers every year was amazing. Only 4 years did he go above plus 60. So how about that? I mean, this is incredible when you think
that's because he was a lousy defensive player. Just kidding.
The one statistic that I really like about Gaudreau this year, which I think is meaningful, is that he's leading the league in even strength points.
Yeah, it's usually meaningful. I agree with you.
Yeah, because I mean it's just much harder to do. It's still hard to score even strength goals. That's why I think as great a season as Chris Kreider is having. He just has so many goals on the power play.
He does.
More than half his goals, or at least half his goals. I think.
That in the end might be the determining factor because Matthews, he has 58, and I believe he has 43, 5-on-5. That's still significant though. That's a lot of goals. Yes. Okay. Let's finish.
All right, here we go to end the show. The draft lottery simulator for today. Here we go. The winner is again Arizona. They've won 2 of 2 that we've done so far. Columbus moving up to the 2nd spot from the 10th spot. That's a big jump for Columbus. They were in the 10th spot. They moved all the way up to number 2. Besides that, it kind of fell.
Montreal fans will be crushed again.
They dropped 1. Yep. And the Flyers now have the third most likely chance, as Seattle has passed them last night. So for what it's worth, the Flyers are even a worse team. I mean, Mike got a chance to watch them last night in person. So here you go.
Yeah, not impressive.
Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy the games tonight.